This is the kind of room I like to do interviews in.
I believe so.
I feel like some foreign potentate who's about to sign a treaty.
It gets even better.
We did. Hello there. And you're the cameraman. You ready? Yeah. Klaar? Yes, of course. Natuurlijk. Klaar?
Yeah. Sir Stephen Fry, it's an honor to have you here.
The air is mine.
Still. These have been quite some eventful days for you.
Sure.
You are here in Leuven to get an honorable doctorate at the Catholic University. And recently, only a few days ago, you have been knighted by King Charles. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. It was in Windsor Castle. It was a very marvellous event. I'm very lucky still to have my mother, who was, you can imagine, she was beaming like a lighthouse, like a fire.
Your last book is Odyssey. You wrote mythos, heroes, and Troy. Why Greek myths?
Do you know, that's a really good question. Why the Greek myth? As a boy, I discovered the stories of Greek mythology and I fell in love with them. Some people would say that the great Greek stories are the original stories that we just now repeat. That every story has its origins in a Greek myth. The Odyssey in particular, perhaps. And I don't think that's exactly true, but I think there's an element of truth in it. If you write a book, a novel, a story set now, you must address the anxieties and cultural worries that we all share at the moment. If you don't address those problems, then people will think that somehow you're not alive in the modern world. But that means when you go back to the Greek myths, you can write about honor and betrayal and love and hate and duty and incest and murder and rape and all terrible things and wonderful things. And they're pure, they're the human elements. They're not caught in the weeds of our contemporary anxieties.
Still very passionate about
Yes,
it.
I am. I am, as you can tell. But, so I think that's part of it. It allows you to address humanity in the raw.
The myths have been studied and analyzed for quite a few times. What can we still learn from the myths in the 21st centuries?
We can learn so much. And one thing I will say, which to me is extraordinary, and I discovered this when I was writing about the creation of mankind. And in the Greek myth, Prometheus, the Titan, makes us out of clay because Zeus is bored. He's the king of the gods. And he's beaten all the Titans and he's made the world perfect. And what can he do every day? He wants pets. He wants little creatures that he can play with and who will obey him and worship him and love him and adore him. And so he tells Prometheus to make us little people. Mm-hmm. And he does. And Zeus says you can do anything you like with them and they can spread around the world, but there's one thing they cannot have, and that is fire. And by fire he meant, yes, fire, the fire that gives us technology and makes us iron and bronze and cooking and, everything, making clay and pots, but also the divine spark, the fire that makes the gods gods, that makes us creative. And humans have this spark now, because Prometheus disobeyed him and gave us the spark. And Zeus was furious because he thought, once human beings have this spark, they won't need the gods anymore. Mm-hmm. They won't worship us anymore. They will stand on their own 2 feet without us. And now we are in the same position. We have made little creatures. They're not really creatures exactly. They're not organic, but exactly yet. They have a sort of intelligence, but they don't have that spark. They don't have that fire. And somewhere in the world there is a Prometheus who wants to give it to them.
You are troubled by what artificial intelligence is bringing us, or people like Elon Musk, for example?
Well, I'm troubled by Elon Musk with or without artificial intelligence. I mean, I would be troubled by any billionaire interfering in politics and controlling media in the way that he does. It's terrifying.
Let's talk about this other thing that's really defining a lot of lives today, and that is war in Ukraine, for example, the threat of war in many other parts in the world. You've traveled to Ukraine, I think, last year to talk about the impact of war on mental health.
Indeed.
If I'm not mistaken, you've met with President Zelensky.
I had the great honor of meeting President Zelensky, yes, and we had a wonderful talk. And he's a a very likable man. He's modest, he laughs at himself, which is a hugely important sign, to be able to laugh at yourself. But the thing that I tell people that most impressed me was when I was invited, in fact by the First Lady, by Olena Zelenska, his wife, who has these conferences. She had this brilliant idea that the First Ladies and First Gentlemen of the democracies of the world have a very unique position to be married to their head of state or to their executive leader, their prime minister, and that they should come together and consider how they might exercise what is known these days as soft power, you know, their influence essentially. And so she has these conferences, and she had one on mental health because she recognized what an important subject it was, but both for soldiers returning from war and from injury and trauma, but also for children who are missing their parents and hearing the bombs fall and the shells explode around them in their schools. There was a real need to try and make sure that the mental health of the young and of everyone was looked at, and it was not a subject that Ukraine had really been open about. And to this day, of course, they're not in Russia, as you can imagine. Instead, they just pour vodka down themselves. What else can they do? But there are many poor soldiers out there who've had a miserable time. We mustn't forget, you know, they're not all evil demons. They're just caught up in this monstrous cycle of violence.
When we look at, let's say, the other side of the spectrum, President Putin, President Trump, in a previous interview you called them bullies. Is there, for example, something that we can learn from the Greek myths on how to deal with this kind of leaders?
And in a sense, what the Greeks teach you more than anything is to have a free mind. You know, not to be told what is true, but to discover what is true. It is that life is a voyage, the Odyssey is a metaphor, as well as an adventure that anybody can understand. It's also about the things you meet on your journey. And I think the Greeks do show that it is the individual who has to decide whether something is true, to discover it. And bullies tell you what to do, and you say no, you have to say no. Even if it makes your life more difficult, and it will. Because bullies only respect power. And they don't respect what they see as weakness. But what they see as weakness, I see as strength. And that is the ability to change your mind, the ability to say, I don't know, I'm not sure.
Maybe I'm going to try to end this interview in a positive way. There are peace talks going on at this moment.
Yes. Yes.
Are you hopeful?
I'm not sure if hopeful's the word. Anxiously hopeful, perhaps I can use the two words together.
But optimism.
But yeah, I mean,
optimism is a moral duty.
It is a moral duty to be optimistic, and I don't know now. I just don't know. All I can say is I'm so lucky to be old. You only know that you lived in a golden age after it is gone. And now you look back and you think what my student life was like, what the opportunities I had were like, what the streets and everything was like, just what pubs and restaurants were like, what life was like, what fun it was. God,
a lovely optimistic way to end this interview.
Indeed, what a pleasure it's been.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.